on young girls that are pushed into a corner and told not to do, you know what, then they actually explode in a sexual frenzy.
Get ready to be stunned. We're exposing the outrageous and scandalous behaviors of music legends. Tune in as we count down the 35 worst dirty habits of musician stars. You won't want to miss these jaw-dropping tales. 35. Marilyn Manson. Alright, let's kick things off with Marilyn Manson, the self-proclaimed god of fuck. This guy has never been shy about pushing boundaries, but in 2002, he definitely crossed the line. Picture this, a G-string clad Manson jumping on top of a bouncer's shoulders during a Michigan show. What happened next is pretty wild. He started gyrating his hips, thighs, and his pubic area against the poor bouncer's head, neck, and face. Gross, right? But here's the kicker. The bouncer got a nice civil settlement out of it. So while it's a disturbing story, at least it paid off for someone.
Marilyn Manson is no stranger to controversy. In fact, he seems to take it in stride. When you go to see one of his shows, you truly don't know what you're going to get.
34. Keith Moon. Next up, we've got The Who's drummer Keith Moon. Now this guy was legendary for his wild behavior, but he took things to a whole new level during his 21st birthday at the Holiday Inn in Flint, Michigan. Imagine a post-gig party that included nudity, fire extinguishers, exploding toilets, and cars in swimming pools. Oh, and don't forget the insane damage bills, armed police, jail time, and hotel bannings. Moon knew how to throw a party, that's for sure.
Don't be alarmed. I think I know what's going on. Yes, that's Keith Monkey. He's a drummer for a rock and roll group called the Master Race Blues Band.
33. Motley Crue. Ever wondered about the story behind Guns N' Roses' album The Spaghetti Incident? Well, it all ties back to Motley Crue's Nikki Sixx and Tommy Lee. These two had a bet to see who could go the longest on tour without showering while still scoring groupies. Disgusting, right? Things came to a head when a groupie, got sick during an encounter with Sixx, vomiting her pasta dinner all over his shoes and other places. Talk about gross.
I'm Tommy Lee. And I'm Nikki Sixx and Motley Crue. Ah, damn it. Oh, man. Fuck, I hate
32. Rick James. Let's move on to Rick James, the king of funk. This guy's story is as shocking as it gets. James and his girlfriend were arrested and eventually convicted for holding a woman hostage for a week. They forced her to smoke crack cocaine, engage in sex acts, and even burned her with a cocaine pipe and pistol whipped her. It's a terrifying tale, possibly with Super Freak blasting in the background. As Dave Chappelle famously said, cocaine is a hell of a drug.
It was a month ago yesterday that Rick James was arrested along with his girlfriend Tanya Hijazi for allegedly imprisoning a 24-year-old woman in his Hollywood Hills home, torturing her allegedly with a hot cocaine pipe and forcing her to commit sexual acts on his girlfriend Tanya Hijazi.
31. Mayhem. Next up, we've got Mayhem, a band that takes darkness to a whole new level. While many bands pretend to be dark or satanic, Norwegian black metal mainstays Mayhem put their money where their mouths are. They were long rumored to be involved in the spate of church burnings that plagued Norway in the early 90s. But that's not all. When their vocalist, Dead, committed suicide at the band house, the remaining members made necklaces from bits of his skull. Talk about hardcore. This band didn't just sing about dark stuff, they lived it in the most gruesome way possible. 30. Iggy Pop and David Bowie. Now, here's a story about friendship that's wild and kind of heartwarming in a very rock and roll way. When Iggy Pop was having a tough time in the mid-70s and was checked into a psychiatric hospital, his friend and mentor David Bowie did what any good buddy would do. He smuggled drugs into the facility. Bowie, along with the even crazier Dennis Hopper, loaded up on substances to help Iggy avoid sobriety in such an unbecoming location. It's the kind of story that makes you go, wow, these guys really were wild. High friends and high places, right?
When I was not doing much in 1975, he invited me to come along on his world tour station to station in '76. And I had never seen anybody in my life work as hard as that guy did.
29. Jessica Simpson. Here's a surprising and kind of gross habit from Jessica Simpson. On the red carpet, Jessica Simpson loves flashing a smile at the cameras. But it turns out her grin isn't as attractive as it seems. She only brushes her teeth 3 times a week, as she confirmed on the Ellen DeGeneres show way back in 2010. She hates the feeling of freshly brushed teeth and say they feel too slippery. Instead, she regularly swaps a toothbrush for a t-shirt. Speaking to Ellen, Jessica explained, "I don't brush them every day. I'll use a shirt or something. I know it's gross, but I always have fresh breath." Who knew?
I don't brush my teeth.
No, stop!
No, really. I just use Listerine.
Okay.
And sometimes I'll use my sweater.
28. Ozzy Osbourne. You might think Ozzy Osbourne is a mess these days, but during Black Sabbath's pinnacle, he was an absolute shambles. In San Antonio, Texas in 1982, Osbourne was arrested for pissing on the Alamo Cenotaph Memorial, not the historical fort itself as lore would have you believe. This act was still akin to treason in those parts. He was quickly arrested and hauled off to lockup, but was released just in time for that night's sold-out show. Osbourne's antics were legendary, and this was just one of his many outrageous moments.
I was legless with a bottle of Crosby in my hand at 9 o'clock in the morning. I wanted to take a pee. So I find this old wall and I've got this green evening dress on. I'm standing there having a leak. And this guy goes mental, this deputy marshal or whatever. There he is. And I was dressed in one of my wife's green evening dresses, urinating up the fucking Alamo.
27. Led Zeppelin. Ever been to a hotel where you can fish from the windows? Blame Led Zeppelin for that. At Seattle's Edgewater Hotel, which overlooks Puget Sound, Led Zepp's entourage found that you could catch mud sharks from the safety of their rooms. Now, add eager, naked groupies to the equation and things get slightly disturbing. No need to go further into details, suffice it to say that it's a good thing no one caught crabs that day. The band's wild escapades are the stuff of rock legend, and this fishing incident is just one of many outrageous tales.
That's right, you heard right. The secret word for tonight is mud shark. And of course, with the mud shark secret word is the mud shark arpeggio.
26. Keith Richards. Finally, we have Keith Richards, a man who will most likely live forever. Stone's Axeman Keith Richards has lived a life full of wild adventures. One of the most bizarre stories is about his father's ashes. Richards got agitated when it was reported that he'd mixed his father's ashes with cocaine and snorted them. He went on record to set things straight. He had indeed snorted his dad's mortal remains, but there were no drugs involved. Just pure Keith Richards being Keith Richards. There's a first time for everything, and for Keith, it's always something wild.
You got that inner force that says, okay, this is no pussyfooting, you gotta. And comparatively easy, far easier than booze.
25. Pete Townshend. Let's delve into the controversial moment involving Pete Townshend of The Who. Back in 2003, Townshend admitted to using his credit card to access a site with child pornography. He claimed he was conducting research for a project aimed at exposing how British banks supported these illegal activities. Despite not downloading any images, he was placed on the sex offenders list for 5 years. He faced significant public backlash, but maintained that his intentions were to fight against child exploitation. Townshend later stated that the incident saved his life by leading to a crucial cancer diagnosis.
On that side, I'd have to say, if there's any, that I do accept that. I apologise for what the trouble that I've caused everybody in this investigation. I know it's complicated, and I feel terrible about it.
24. John Legend. Chrissy Teigen is spilling all the intimate details about her relationship with her husband John Legend, and some of them may surprise you. The outspoken Sports Illustrated model is not afraid to tell it like it is, even if it means admitting all the strange places she and the singer have done the deed. In an interview for Cosmopolitan per Fox News, Teigen revealed that in addition to upper thigh rubbing in restaurants, the couple isn't afraid to get down and dirty on commercial airplanes. We were on our way to Thailand to see my parents, flying commercial first class, she explained. We were under a blanket. We weren't even in one of those pod things. I feel like we should get a trophy for that. The mother of four also confirmed that she and her hubby got it on during an event for former President Obama. When asked by Extra TV about the best public place the two had sex, she answered, "Probably the Obama thing," but confirmed that the act didn't take place at the White House. While shying away from giving any details, Legend clarified he was not elected yet.
Public place, you did it. Is this the best or the worst? What do you do?
The best.
Okay, the best. Probably the Obama thing.
John, what's the? Oh God. Oh God. John.
23. Don King. Infamous boxing promoter Don King stomped a former employee to death because he owed King $600. King was found guilty of second-degree murder, but the judge reduced his sentencing to non-negligent manslaughter. He was sentenced to a maximum of 20 years in prison, but was pardoned after about 4 years by then Ohio Governor Jim Rhodes.
Hey Don, why'd you rob Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali like Barack Obama robbed us?
Because I loved them. I loved them, and I thought it was just so nice that they would give me an opportunity for me to make them rich so that I could rob them, because they were poor when they came to me and there was nothing to rob.
22. Steven Tyler. Steven Tyler was in a relationship with a 16-year-old when he was in his mid-20s and bragged about it in his autobiography. In fact, Tyler even got her age wrong in the book, claiming that the girl, later revealed to be Julia Holcomb, was only 14 when they met in 1973. If the year is correct, he would have been about 25. When Holcomb told her side of the story years later, she alleged that Tyler convinced her mother to let him take legal guardianship of her so that she could travel on tour with him. She also alleges that he impregnated her at 17 and convinced her to have an abortion.
A new lawsuit accuses Aerosmith frontman Steven Tyler of sexual assault of a minor back in the 1970s. In the lawsuit, which does not name Tyler as a defendant, Julia Misley, formerly known as Julia Holcomb, claims sexual assault starting at 16, coercion of an abortion, and involuntary infamy by Tyler.
21. Anthony Kiedis. Anthony Kiedis of the Red Hot Chili Peppers said in his own autobiography that he knowingly had sex with a minor. In his 2005 autobiography, Scar Tissue, Kiedis wrote about having sex with a girl he thought was 18, but who later told him she was only 14 years old. He tells how she revealed her age to him and told him that her father was the chief of police in the area, and how he had sex one more time with her after that. Kiedis was 23 years old at the time.
I wrote the lyrics to that song because if you notice the actual limitations and the reflections of repression and suppression within a religious format on young girls that are pushed into a corner and told not to do you know what, then they actually explode in a sexual frenzy, unable to contain their panties or anything else of that nature, to the point when they're just mad, wild, malicious, mayhemistic sex fiends. And that's what happens to most girls that are Catholic schoolgirls.
20. Chris Brown. Chris Brown violently assaulted Rihanna and has been accused of several other assaults in the years since, including allegations from Karrueche Tran that ended up granting her a 5-year restraining order against Brown. Brown received probation, a restraining order, and community service in a plea deal for assaulting Rihanna, and was later sentenced to jail time for violating his probation. He has denied the allegations of assault against Tran. He continues to receive awards and nominations for his music to this day.
Chris Brown is opening up about the 2009 incident with Rihanna while on their way to the Grammys.
She grabs my nuts, and when she do that, I bite her arm, I think, as I'm driving, because I'm still trying to drive. And it's just like a petty, like, stupid fight.
Brown was found guilty of felony assault.
19. Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley met his wife Priscilla when she was 14 and he was 24. According to biographies about Presley, he met Priscilla when she was 14. Elvis was 24 at the time. While they did not marry until Priscilla turned 21, the two spent significant time together while Priscilla was underage and still in high school. By some accounts, Elvis even lied to Priscilla's parents by saying they would stay in Los Angeles and be chaperoned at all times during one of Priscilla's visits, only for Elvis to take Priscilla to Las Vegas instead. '18. Jerry Lee Lewis. Jerry Lee Lewis always caused commotion as an early rock and roll rebel. Incidentally, the Wild Child went too far by settling down with Myra Gale Brown in 1957. The 22-year-old Lewis publicly lied about his third wife's already sketchy age of 15 when she was really 13. She was also his first cousin once removed. Just like that, Lewis publicly went from bad boy to total creep. The subsequent concert cancellations and boycotts devastated his popular appeal. He remained an active musician for the rest of his life, whose influential work is still celebrated. The man himself would never recover from his union with Brown or its dissolution on grounds of infidelity and abuse. This wasn't Lewis's last scandalous marriage.
Well, the papers reported that you were greeted with silence over there and with catcalls from the audience. Is that right?
Well, I can't agree with them there, sir. Our audience was very nice and very good.
Mm-hmm. Were you there, Mrs. Lewis?
I was there, but I wasn't at the shows.
Oh, you weren't at the shows.
17. Ike Turner. In the early days of rock and roll, Ike Turner was a visionary. He really got his big break by helping his wife Tina get hers. The couple revolutionized pop music, but no longer share the same esteem. After filing for divorce in 1976, Tina revealed that her marriage was plagued by physical and psychological abuse. Ike's public image, as well as his finances, were further tarnished by substance use and legal issues. All of this was cemented in pop culture by the biopic What's Love Got to Do with It? The Turners both stated that the film embellished their dysfunctional relationship. Still, while Tina is immortalized as the queen of rock and roll, the Queenmaker's legacy is overshadowed by cruelty.
I didn't know that the man was an utter bastard.
I hope he hears that, and I didn't say it. He had some problems.
Some problems?
Well, I must be as civil as I possibly can about it. I don't want word to go back to Ike Turner saying that I said that he was this name that you just accused him of.
There's no one here, just us.
Oh, well, who's there?
16. Gary Glitter. Paul Glad helped broaden glam rock's pop appeal with the flamboyant anthems and live performances of Gary Glitter. He'd still be an icon of the genre if it weren't for his shocking criminal history. In 1999, Gadd was convicted of possessing obscene content and registered as a sex offender. His career died on the spot. After prison, Gadd tried starting anew outside of England, only to be deported and banned from several countries for continuing to fraternize with youth. A conviction in Vietnam resulted in deportation to his homeland, where he was convicted of multiple sex crimes in 2015. The Gary Glitter brand has now faded into obscurity, and all that's left is a criminal rejected by the whole world.
Off the area as the former rock star told the world he was sorry for what he'd done.
I deeply regret doing what I was sent to prison.
15. 6ix9ine. You may know Daniel Hernandez better as 6ix9ine, the rainbow-haired, face-tatted artist behind songs like Gummo and Fifi, but he is equally known for his criminal behavior in celebrity feuds. In 2015, 6ix9ine pled guilty to a nasty felony involving a minor and was arrested again 3 years later on charges of racketeering, among other things. He testified against other members of a street gang he was part of, resulting in a reduced sentence of just 2 years. After being released from prison in April of 2020, he saw a brief resurgence with his Nicki Minaj collab, Trolls. However, 6ix9ine has largely been unable to capture his pre-prison glory since then. He has also been ostracized from the hip-hop community, making a potential comeback even more unlikely.
Details about New York rapper Tekashi 6ix9ine's case have been revealed. In court last week, Tekashi, whose legal name is Daniel Hernandez, pleaded guilty to charges stemming from his role in a violent drug trafficking gang, racketeering, conspiracy, and 8 other charges.
14. Phil Spector. While not a musician per se, Phil Spector was an extremely successful songwriter and record producer. He wrote the Teddy Bears' #1 single, To Know Him Is to Love Him, and later revolutionized the music industry with his production techniques, including the famous Wall of Sound. Having worked with the likes of the Beatles, Leonard Cohen, and the Ramones, Spector was a highly regarded figure in the music industry. However, he later developed a substance use disorder and entered an extended period of seclusion in the early 1980s. He re-emerged into the public consciousness in 2003 after the murder of a woman named Lana Clarkson. Spector was found guilty and sentenced to prison, where he died in 2021.
The defendant is sentenced to the term required by law, 15 years to life, on his conviction for second-degree murder.
13. CeeLo Green. A once popular R&B singer, CeeLo Green found success both in groups and as a solo artist. His biggest songs are Crazy with Danger Mouse, which was released under their duo name Gnarls Barkley, and of course his solo #2 single, Forget You. But shortly after that song was released, Green was accused of sexual battery and was investigated by the LAPD. He was later sentenced to 3 years probation and community service after pleading no contest to furnishing a hallucinogen. His image in the public eye took an even worse downturn when Green made some controversial remarks on Twitter regarding the former of his cases and the general issue of sexual assault. And that was pretty much it for CeeLo Green's career, as none of his solo singles since Forget You have even charted.
Prosecutors say the 39-year-old Grammy winner had dinner with a 33-year-old woman in Los Angeles more than a year ago. During that dinner, according to prosecutors, he slipped the woman the drug MDMA, also known as ecstasy, before accompanying her to her hotel room.
12. Pete Doherty. Pete Doherty, frontman of the Libertines, has had a tumultuous battle with drug addiction, particularly with heroin. His descent into addiction began around 2002 when he romanticized the idea of opium, which quickly led to a severe heroin habit. This addiction resulted in numerous legal issues, including multiple arrests and stints in prison for drug possession and related offenses. Doherty has openly admitted to smuggling heroin into Japan in his guitar case, which he used immediately upon arrival. This addiction took a heavy toll on his health, at one point leading to a severe infection that nearly caused him to lose his feet due to running out of viable veins for injection. Despite the chaos and legal troubles, Doherty managed to turn his life around and has been clean for several years, now living a quieter life in Normandy with his family.
Do you think this is the end of you and drugs?
11. Neil Young. Young has generally avoided a reputation for doing heavy drugs himself. However, there have been some close calls. When he appeared in the band's concert film The Last Waltz in 1976, Young was apparently snorting cocaine backstage directly before his performance. In band drummer Levon Helm's autobiography, he wrote, "Neil Young had delivered a good version of Helpless, but performed with a good-sized rock of cocaine stuck in his nostril. Neil's manager saw this and said, 'No way is Neil gonna be in the film like this.' They had to go to special effects people who developed what they called a traveling booger mat that sanitized Neil's nostril and put Helpless into the movie. As a result, that crumb of cocaine is surely one of the most expensive ever snorted."
Do whatever they want, or maybe they all want to do the same thing over and over again. Whatever, it's fine with me, whatever everybody does. Just don't tell me what to do.
10. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson uses dangerous anesthesia to sleep. When Michael Jackson's hair caught fire after a pyrotechnic device malfunctioned above his head while filming a Pepsi commercial in 1984, at the time it seemed like a fluke accident that he quickly moved on from. But his process of recovery profoundly affected his life in two ways. One, it got him started on altering his appearance through cosmetic surgery. Two, it gave him his first exposure to prescription painkillers. For the next quarter century, Jackson's reliance on drugs vacillated. In times of stress, he abused them and engaged in hardcore financial malfeasance to numb himself from the mental toll of being repeatedly accused of child molestation and surrounded by a galaxy of managers, lawyers, Arab royalty, and entertainment industry players eager to get a piece of him, none more ruthless about it than his own family. But most of all, he used drugs to sleep.
Michael Jackson never mentioned a single doctor to me who was treating him with opioids, propofol, or any of those substances.
9. James Brown. The 80s took their toll on Soul Brother number 1 as he started using PCP. He was arrested numerous times before. In 1988, he reportedly pulled a shotgun on a man for using the toilet in his office before fleeing, leading police on a chase near the border of Georgia and South Carolina. He was convicted of possession, driving under the influence, carrying an unlicensed pistol, and assaulting a police officer, and sentenced to 6 years in jail, released in 3. He continued to have problems with the law for the last 15 years of his life, most often owing to charges of domestic violence.
He was always afraid that one day he would have to come back here to live.
The fear of losing hard-won stardom may have led Brown to victimize those close to him to keep them dependent.
8. David Crosby. A lot of musicians who came of age during the 60s exited the decade with serious drug problems, but few were still running wild decades later. David Crosby of the Byrds and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Sometimes Young has proven a noteworthy exception here. In 1982, he went to prison for 9 months after being charged with possession of cocaine and heroin. In 1985, while on probation for DUI, he was arrested for driving into a fence with a gun and cocaine in his car. Asked by a reporter why he was armed, he said it was his response to the murder of John Lennon by a crazed fan.
That was an age we wanted to leave behind, and maybe rightly so. So when the idea of smoking a joint, came along, we thought, wow, this is pretty wonderful. And we embraced it. We thought, wow, this is going to give us all kinds of wild new ideas.
7. Scott Weiland. While on probation, Weiland moved into a hotel room next to Courtney Love and claims the two began doing drugs together. In 1998, he was arrested buying heroin, reportedly while dressed as a pimp. In 2003, he got in a car crash while under the influence of drugs and alcohol, but charges were dismissed after he successfully completed rehab. Thereafter, Weiland transitioned to DUIs with arrests in 2007 and 2008. The latter incident involving jail time.
It's right now. I love that app, by the way. That's cool, and finesse.
6. Old Dirty Bastard. According to the FBI file on the Wu-Tang Clan, ODB was arrested 9 times between 1987 and 1999 for crimes ranging from petty larceny. He tried to steal a $50 pair of shoes while carrying $500 in cash, to attempted first-degree murder. In the last 6 years of his life, he continued to be arrested frequently for drug possession. He was once caught with marijuana and 20 vials of crack cocaine and reportedly asked the cops to make the rocks disappear. He didn't tone it down for his many court appearances on drug charges. He once asked a female prosecutor, "Do I make you horny?" before falling asleep in court.
Back in the house with Young TV Rap, my man Old Dirty Bastard in the house, right here. Still part of the Wu-Tang Clan, ain't nothing changed.
Drunk as can beat, I'm the drunken master style. See, nobody can ever touch me. Nobody can ever feel.
5. Milli Vanilli. The story of Milli Vanilli is one of the best known and often remembered frauds of the music world. The famous German duo, consisting of Rob Pilatus and Fab Morvan, began their work in 1988. Conceived and founded by German producer Frank Farian, Milli Vanilli released their first album in 1988 titled All or Nothing in Europe and Girl You Know It's True in the US. But the first proofs of lip syncing were unveiled during their July 1989 show when one of the songs began to skip and the guys ran off the stage. However, it was in December that year that the real dirt came out and a singer named Charles Shaw spoke up, stating he and 2 other guys were the ones who actually did all the singing on the album. After a series of public scandals and accusations, Farian finally confessed that this was true. Girl, you know it was.
Well, we hope to prove to ourselves at first that we're able to do something that to a certain extent we have talent, quote unquote. You know, that's the reason why we came back.
4. New Steppenwolf. Not that big of a fraud as the duo mentioned above, but this so-called New Steppenwolf was put together by a shady management company. After Steppenwolf was disbanded by John Kay in 1976, the original keyboard player Goldie McJohn and bassist on 2 of the band's previous albums, Nick St. Nicholas, were contacted by the agency to start the revival of the legendary band. However, McJohn soon left this incarnation of the group, and this revived Steppenwolf ended up seeing various musicians in its lineup, none of which were original members of the old band. After legal action by John Kay and drummer Jerry Edmonton, who owned the rights to the Steppenwolf name, Nicholas ceased performing under this moniker. However, there were numerous legal disputes between the 2 parties, lasting all the way until 2000. 3. Bogus Deep Purple. In 1980, Rod Evans, the original vocalist for Deep Purple, became involved in a controversial and ill-fated venture that tarnished his reputation and ended his music career. After leaving Deep Purple in 1969 and experiencing moderate success with the band Captain Beyond, Evans pursued a career in the medical field. However, he was approached by a shady management company known for its unethical practices, including a failed attempt to profit from the Steppenwolf name. This management convinced Evans to perform under the Deep Purple name despite the absence of any other original members from the band. The new lineup, often referred to as Bogus Deep Purple, included musicians who had been involved in other dubious projects. They performed songs that had no connection to Evans' era with Deep Purple, misleading fans and damaging the band's legacy. The real Deep Purple members, including Ian Gillan and David Coverdale, were outraged by this deception. They quickly took legal action to protect their band's name and integrity. In June 1980, Deep Purple Overseas Limited filed a lawsuit in the Los Angeles Federal District Court against Evans and the management company, seeking an injunction to stop them from using the Deep Purple name and claiming damages under trademark law. The court ruled in favor of the original Deep Purple members, ordering Evans to pay $672,000 in damages, which would be equivalent to about $2 million today. Additionally, Evans forfeited all rights to royalties from his work with Deep Purple. This financial burden, combined with the loss of his musical credibility, effectively ended his career in the music industry. Since then, Evans has remained out of the public eye, reportedly continuing his work in the medical profession. 2. Threatin. Ah yes, the newest sensation of rock music. What Jared Eames pulled off was so impressive that it even earned him some actual fans after all the dust settled. Some would say that Threatin, his solo project, proves that there is no such thing as negative publicity. So this guy from LA faked his whole fan base by paying for social media likes and followers and YouTube views. He even managed to schedule an entire European tour with fake Facebook event attendees, all of which were reportedly profiles of people from South America. When shit eventually hit the fan, various media outlets revealed he faked a booking agency, management company, web design company, Wikipedia page, entire press outlet, and a whole bunch of other stuff. There was also a YouTube account with fake concert footage from back in 2016, so he must have been planning on this for a long time. The result? Threatin shows looked more like sound checks than rock gigs, as there were literally only a handful of people in the audience. The word spread and the venue started canceling his upcoming performances, and 2 out of 3 of his touring musicians left him mid-tour. He eventually earned the title the Tommy Wiseau of rock music. We do recommend that you read all of the linked articles in the given order, since there's a lot more behind the whole thing. According to some comments here on UG, Jared's music actually ain't bad. Tell us what you think.
Anyway, this LA-based rock act who seems to be a solo artist named Jared Threatin somehow managed to book himself a European tour with no fan base or record sales.
1. Joyce Hatto. Although the Threatin thing was pretty weird, we're yet to see a fraud musician that will outdo the Joyce Hatto incident. Everything just pales to the comparison. Joyce Hatto was a classical pianist born in 1928 who enjoyed some success in the 1950s, 60s, and 70s, with critics praising her musical and technical skills. In 1956, she married a record producer named William Barrington Coop. Now, William was an interesting fellow. So interesting that he got arrested and jailed for tax evasion in 1966. But this didn't stop their marriage nor her musical career, and Joyce kept performing until 1976. At that time, she withdrew from public life due to her cancer diagnosis, although the doctor who treated her during the last years of her life stated that there was no record of her having cancer prior to 1992. But it's the last few years of her life that became really interesting. Although not performing in public, Joyce released a whole bunch of recordings of her playing the works of Beethoven, Rachmaninoff, Mozart, Chopin, and many other composers under her husband's label, Concert Artist Recordings. The critics and listeners were pretty stunned, and she gained a significant following in the early 2000s. But isn't it suspicious that a woman who hasn't performed in public for literally decades suddenly releases so many quality recordings? The first suspicion came in 2005, when a musicologist named Marc-Andre Roberge noticed something in one of the pieces on her CDs. It was a misreading of a chord in Chopin-Godowsky Studies, completely identical to the one recorded by Italian pianist Carlo Grante in 1993. However, this was not investigated further and was simply ignored for some time. Joyce eventually passed away in 2006 and was buried as one of the most talented and prolific classical pianists of the era. Although there were some people skeptical of her work, they were countered by some of the publicly acclaimed music critics. But it was in 2007, about a year after her death, that all of her and her husband's wrongdoings were revealed. And all thanks to iTunes. The unraveling of the fraud started when one particular classical music fan put one of Hatto's CDs into his computer and suddenly realized that the Grace Note software used by iTunes recognized this as a recording by Hungarian pianist Laszlo Simon. One thing led to another, and it was eventually looked into and revealed by some of the famous classical music magazines. Although initially denying all the wrongdoings, Joyce's husband, Barrington Coop, finally admitted to committing this fraud. Although he claimed that Joyce was completely unaware of these crimes, many are still suspicious about this and believe she also was a part of the scam.
Industry insiders were astounded. Joyce Hatto had not played in public since her last concert in 1976.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed these shocking stories, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more crazy music tales. Check out our other videos for more unbelievable rock star moments. See you next time.